crisis is averted, because the crisis is not the idea that people are going to accept this. The crisis is the idea that people are going to say no, exactly like they did in Iceland, and they just can't have that. They can't give people a say in what's happening over their own lives.
Look, I could ask a lot of questions here, James, but on your radar screen, I asked this at the first. You brought up the radiation in Japan. What else are you really concerned about right now? I mean, we see this incredible global push to censor the internet, Homeland Security admitting they're ordering YouTube to censor videos critical of government. What's your view on all that?
Absolutely ridiculous and really disconcerting, but again, not really surprising for anyone who's been covering it for a while. But one of the subjects that I've been covering lately, and I think is really interesting and hasn't been getting a lot of attention, is the drug running aspects of the Fast and Furious debacle, which turns out to, as we now start to realize, it's a much bigger program. It was there in the Bush administration. It's been going on for a long time. So we know this is a big operation that's been unfolding for a while. And now that it's coming out in court documents that, oh yeah, they have to invoke this Classified Information Protection Act or whatever it's called in this the trial of this Sinaloa drug cartel gangster, because he's claiming, hey, I was just working for the U.S. government. I'm just part of the gang, you know. And now that that's coming out, they have to invoke this act, so he can't speak in court anymore. So it turns out again that they're working with the drug lords in this crony monopolist manner to try to control the drug trade and try to monopolize it, and that's all part of this gun running program. It's just so mind-boggling, corruption off the scale that I think in any other time, I mean, we could be talking about this for months and months and months, but now there's just so much going on and so much on our plates that it's difficult to keep all of these balls in the air at any one time, as you know.
We've got Fritz Springmeier coming up, but I want to take some calls with you. I want to give the number out right now. We'll take 5 or 6 calls for our next guest. The toll-free number to join us, we are live at 12:34 Central Standard Time. That's 1:34 Eastern, or I guess you could say 11:34 Mountain, or 10:34 Pacific.
Or 2:34 Japanese Standard Time. 2:34 in the afternoon.
All right, we got Don in Michigan still holding from earlier. The toll-free number to join us is 877-789-ALEX, 877-789-2539. Open phones, 877-789-ALEX. Don in Michigan, you're on the air with the Corbett Report. Go ahead. Hello, Don. We are speaking to you from Austin, Texas. He fell asleep. He's been holding a while. All right, we just opened I didn't even know the phones were open yet. They told me a caller was still holding. So obviously he's probably already gone to sleep for the evening. So the phones are open, 877-789-ALEX. James Corbett, going back to all this, how much corruption can the system handle coming out? How much can they handle when it's just how incredibly criminal they are becomes more and more evident?
They can handle exactly as much as we can handle, and I think that's the point of it. Once again, this devolves to the people who have the real power and control over all of these systems. We always tend to look at the government and what the government officials are doing as if they're the real heart of this, but no, we are the heart. We are the base on which they build the foundations for all of their strictures and structures of control and all of their control over society. So when we start to say no, they crumble, and I think that's the point of it. And we are getting to that point. As you know, we are reaching that critical mass, to use an unfortunate analogy, that we are really starting to take over this process. But it's always a question, are we doing enough, and have they set up their structures to capture us once we get out of the paradigm well enough? So it's really a race against time. But ultimately, I think we are winning that race. And you, as you say, I mean, their corruption is going to start eating itself, as it always does and always has throughout history, that it gets to the point where the corruption is so rampant and is in so many corners and has been fostered for so long by so many different agencies and departments and multinational corporations that have all of these levers of power, that when these people, these parasites, get into all of these positions of power, they start feeding on each other because there's nothing left. So I think that is, in one way, is something to look forward to. In another way, we're all going to suffer when this economy starts to go down. But that's the only way, I think, to get through this and to really start to construct the type of system that we do want, instead of living under the reins of the rulers of the moment.
All right, folks, we are queuing up your calls right now. I just opened the phone system here a few minutes ago. We'll go to some calls for James Corbett here in a moment. We are doing a 27-hour marathon transmission. We are doing a money bomb. If you're watching, whether it's $1 or $1,000, your donations are welcome. We'll help fund hiring more people for the news staff and buying more equipment we need here. Look what we've built here with your support in the last few years. We've also got huge discounts on videos and books and things at Infowars.com. We have bumper stickers at cost in this new offensive we've launched. All available at Infowars.com. You can find the donate buttons or InfowarsMoneyBomb.com. We also have a few crew members here back there to take your calls for phone call donations at 888-253-3139, 888-253-3139. Here it is 12:38 and 27 seconds. We're talking to James Corbett of CorbettReport.com. James, looking at, I already mentioned the Orwellian stuff, but, I mean, my gosh, it's becoming so crazy with street lights listening to you and watching you and government with warrantless checkpoints and TSA everywhere. I mean, at a certain point, this is really becoming la-la land.
I mean, you couldn't make this up if you were trying, and trust me, people in the past have tried their best to make up the most outrageous stuff, and it's still nowhere close to what we're living through right now. USA Today coming out today, hotel guests recruited with Homeland Security TV spots, these PSAs inviting everyone to pretend they're James Bond and looking for the Al-Qaeda boogeyman under every bed and in every corner of the room, just getting more and more ridiculous and out in your face in the open. And as we've talked about before, I mean, this is part of the psychological operation to get people to commit to one side or the other. And they know there's going to be a lot of people that get woken up by this kind of in-your-face Orwellian tyranny. But there's going to be a lot of people who are going to buy into it because they are so invested in the system and in all of the things that are going on in their life. They just don't want to face it. And they will buy into all of this. And that is part of the strategy. And unfortunately, they've set up the whole Orwellian system to try to control those people and to oppress those people and to imprison those people who rise up against them. So it's a very difficult situation to combat unless we start to unlock more minds, which is the whole point of Infowars, is what it's all about, and I think what it has to be about at this point.
Well, that's right, James. Those that have already bought into corruption will just give into anything. Once you've said, I'm going to acquiesce to this, the sky's the limit. I want to go to phone calls here. Melvin in New York, then Harminder, Alex, Will, Joe, and Doug, and others. Melvin, you're on the air. Thanks for holding.
Alex, how you doing, man? I'm enjoying the show. I sent you 3 Federal Reserve notes that are probably worth a couple pennies. You could trade in.
Thank you.
Thank you. And James, you're the man. I like your channel, and you have a great voice.
Thank you. That's awesome to hear.
Yeah, man. I wanted to let you know, at my school out here in New York, I took an urban study course about the history of New York, and the teacher was really slanted towards the left, and all the kids were group thinking with the whole brainwash of the liberalism. But the whole class was about capitalism and how capitalism started with slavery, and that the beginning of the country and the whole system that we live under. And I understand with the whole 1913, the Federal Reserve, but they were teaching literally that capitalism comes from slavery, and that Peter Stuyvesant and all these collectivists had to come through, and these statists had to come, fix everything, put in curfews, social engineering, and they needed the hand of tyranny to control the wild, ravenous people of New York, the uncontrollable. It was along that angle, and I mentioned the Illuminati, I mentioned all kinds of stuff in the class, and the teacher didn't refute anything I said, but the kids looked at me like I was an alien.
Well, look, all you got to know is the big bankers always fund communism. Capitalism, we're not under a capitalist system. Slavery is as old as humanity. Every group's engaged in that under tyranny. And they always push collectivism because they want to get people dependent so you're not independent. But, James, your view on that?
Well, I think you're right. Here's what I have to say about slavery. Slavery is all about how you define it. So, yes, absolutely, there was slavery going on in America hundreds of years ago, but there's still slavery going on today. It's just a different type. And
it's debt slavery, or they catch you using their drugs they brought in, and so now legally they make you a slave in a prison for 20 cents an hour.
That's it. I mean, they just don't call it slavery, so we don't have to talk about it, I guess. Or if they put in their collectivist system that they want to put in and make everyone share their wealth at the point of a gun, then that's not slavery. That's happiness or whatever they want to call it.
By the way, they make all discrimination about race or something instead of globalist banks getting bailout money and being exempt from their own laws. Melvin, final comment.
Yeah, man, my sister works for the TSA. I try to tell her about the body scanners. She tells me it's lies. I tell her, it's in the instruction manual. You can see the private parts to lock it in, to lock the view in. She's like, how'd you find that out? How do they tell you? Then she gives me the excuse, well, look, even sometimes the government messes up, and look how they put the underwear bomber or the shoe bomber, whichever one of those it was, on the plane by mistake. Our CIA did it, so even we mess up.
Yeah, they spin it. The government put him on the plane by accident. Oh, yeah.
You have to submit. And then she gives me the other excuses. Oh, if you can't deal with this, then you can't be a passenger in Israel, because over there, they're real security.
Well, you notice America's got to be like Israel. We always hear that. We've got to have checkpoints everywhere because we're... No, incredible, Melvin. Good to hear from you. Your sister will wake up later. She'll have to wake up. Thank you. Harmander in Hong Kong. You're on the air with James Corbett. Go ahead.
Hi, Alex. It's great to talk to you, and to you too, James. It's actually finally nice to talk to you because your show starts at 12 a.m. here, and I got to go to sleep to go to work the next morning.
Well, thank you, sir.
I just want to say that, Alex, you woke me up about a year ago from your last money bomb. That's the first time I actually listened to you. And in that year, I've learned more about history, economics, common law, and all of that from you, more than I did from university.
Well, thank you, sir. We're just researching the real history. Thank you.
Exactly. I just want Americans to know that, it's not futile to fight for what you believe in. It's not futile to get together and say, no, we will not stand for this. Example is here in Hong Kong. In 2003, they tried to pass what's known as Article 23. It's a national security law into our Constitution, the basic law here. And 500,000 people came out to protest against it, and they shelved it. Of course, they'll probably bring it out later on, but in 2003, they completely shelved it through people power. So nothing is impossible.
Well, that's the law of the universe. We have the power. We're taught we don't have power. And I got to hand it to folks in Hong Kong and Taiwan and places. Those folks know how to stand up and say no, and we need to discover that same thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Just in July, they tried to take away our right to vote in by-elections because some legislators here quit because they weren't feeling that democracy in Hong Kong was maturing fast enough, so they quit and ran again in a special by-election that was supposed to be kind of a referendum on democracy. But through the disinfo, they said, look, they're wasting taxpayers' money. We got to plug this loophole and try to take away our by-election voting rights completely.
Yeah, the system always, it's causing problems that people can vote. It's causing problems that governments are in gridlock. Gridlock is good. You don't want a grease skid. You get a Hitler. You get a Napoleon. You want that. You want to have things go through a process, not be instantaneous. James, you got a comment?
Well, I echo that completely, and I just invite people to